So before I became a patient at the Breathe Institute, I saw a sleep specialist, MD, which I have seen, a couple throughout the years. And this one was Dr. Kashani from UCLA. And he referred me to a UCLA ENT. He had me make like a sleep log, and he looked at some of my CPAP data. And basically, he said that my sleep breathing seems fine. I had asked him for an overnight sleep study, in this case specifically a titration study, which I had been asking for from my sleep specialists and primary care physicians for years. And I've had a lot because I've been kind of moving around and switching insurances a lot throughout the past few years. So I've seen a lot of doctors and a lot of sleep doctors, and I've always requested the titration study because I really wanted to see what was going on. And I had all these doctors, like Dr. Kashani, telling me that he doesn't believe I need a titration study because the numbers on the reporting of my CPAP machine seem fine. And I told him that, there seems to be some debate as to whether or not those numbers are comprehensive and really understanding what's going on with sleep disordered breathing. In other words, the CPAP machine can't quite track all sorts of respiratory events. And I kind of had this long back and forth with him that kind of, happened a few occasions over the course of a couple of weeks, and he just wasn't convinced. So I kind of let it go. But then I read on Reddit that if you would like to get some test and your doctor is denying it, you can simply ask them for some written note documenting the denial for insurance purposes or something. I think that they don't want to be legally liable for X, Y, and Z, or I'm not really sure. But I did it. I sent him an email and I tried to be as polite as I could. But I said, I don't know who to believe. I'm reading from doctors online that the CPAP machine can't always track all forms of sleep disordered breathing, and I would like a titration study. So if you don't think I need it, could you at least document that for me in some sort of note for my insurance company? And then he said, okay, I'll put in an order for you to get a titration study. So I got the titration study, and it was partially a success and partially a failure. So if you don't know, the point of a titration study is it's basically an overnight sleep study where they put all these sensors all over your body to measure many different things, but it also includes measuring your brain waves. So it's the only accurate way of tracking sleep. And they also hook you up to a CPAP machine, and there's a sleep technician who is awake while you're sleeping throughout the night, who's messing with the pressure and trying to find the optimal pressure for your CPAP machine. So it not only has a goal, which is to find the optimal pressure, but it also helps with kind of diagnostic information. And I was only able to sleep in the lab for maybe 2 hours, and I think they could have really done a better job at making a more conducive environment at that titration lab. But I fell asleep for a few hours, and the sleep tech told me after, he said that he started around the pressure range that I had already been using, which is somewhere around minimum 10 centimeters of water pressure to 20. It usually hovers around maybe 11 or 12. He said around these pressures, 9 to 12 or so, he couldn't find a pressure that I was able to breathe properly. He said that he believes he can if he had more time, so I might get another titration study. But more importantly, he said that I was waking up from respiratory disturbances every 2 minutes, which obviously wasn't being tracked by the machine. And so to me, that's proof enough that my doctor and every doctor before that was wrong. And I think that's very frustrating But I think that this is a very big phenomenon in the field of medicine, and it's kind of something that I'm kind of understanding, but I'm not able to summarize it quite perfectly. But I think that it's multifaceted. I think that there's tons of invalidation happening in medicine constantly. I mean, I've had gross experiences of neglect by doctors who have brushed me off for many different reasons, sometimes even aggressively. And here I am, years later, I feel completely confident that they were all wrong, including my most recent sleep doctor. And I understand, I'm not trying to say that any one person is a good or bad person. I just think that the field needs to be revamped. I think that doctors have a lot on their plate. They have huge rates of regret for their career choices, and that's terrible. That's terrible that you could spend so much time and money to do something that's usually done in an effort to better the world and regret that. Like, what kind of society do we live in where so many people regret that choice? But anyway, I think that there seems to be like 3 tiers of care. There is like doctors who are very neglectful. So I've been told, oh, you need to see a psychologist, psychiatrist, you have depression. There's nothing more I can do for you, even though I've been asking for specific tests that I think we can do, and they've denied. But so I would say that tier is kind of like the neglectful doctors. I would say the next tier is doctors who listen and are working with you. And that tier, I think I've been experiencing a lot more now that I've started to go get my own care. So I would say that includes all the surgeons I mentioned, Dr. Koppelson, Dr. Vaughn, and Dr. Wallin, and then all the orthodontists and stuff. These people, they listen, but I would say that there is a tier above that. And I think that is something that's very special about the Breathe Institute when compared to other institutions. Maybe I'm making unfair claims, but it seems to me that, when I talked to Dr. Wallin, I talked about like, okay, well, how likely is this to resolve my sleep breathing issue? And he says that, well, my patients who have the best raving reviews are always my sleep patients. So he's giving me kind of some general patient testimonials. Dr. Vaughn, similar things. And it seems like these people, they are expert surgeons. They understand the structure of the face. They understand how to change it. They really know a lot of the details. They're really incredible. But I think the Breathe Institute is taking that a step further. And I really started to feel this way because I've been taking their class. I just finished 2 full-day sessions. It's almost about halfway done. And I've started to understand that, this group is not just trying to be the best surgeon or the best at some specific expansion. They're trying to understand breathing, and they're bringing on whoever they think is necessary to push that goal. I think that is like the top tier of like what the field of medicine should be. It's to collaborate through multiple disciplines of medicine to achieve some understanding and then some result. And just looking at their team and meeting a lot of them while taking their course, they've got different types of doctors, surgeons, pharmacists, specialists, myofunctional therapists, sleep hygienists, like meditation therapists, and researchers. So to me, I feel that that's a very reassuring environment. It's not simply that, okay, I'm going to meet with this surgeon and we're going to get the optimal surgery. It's that I'm going to meet with this institution and we're going to get the optimal solution to my problem in general. Like, I previously saw an ENT surgeon over a year ago, and I had surgery on my nose to clear up my airways, and it didn't help. And he says, "Oh, well, I don't know what else I can do for you. You should talk to your primary care physician." It seems like with regular medicine, the responsibility is too diffused, whereas the Breathe Institute is comprehensive, and I have not seen that before. And I have heard the critiques of the Breathe Institute, but I ultimately, like, I recognize them and I understand them, but I don't really share those opinions, although who really cares what my opinions are on medicine. So as for the course, it's really awesome. I thought that it would be kind of a lot of work, and it's like 40 hours of lecture or something along there, and I didn't know how to balance it. I thought this would be exhausting to do in addition to working full time, but it was fun. It's actually a blast. So I'm not having a problem at all with that. Now I want to share the information with you, but I haven't really determined how yet, because I don't know if I'm really qualified to put that information out there in the most appropriate way and answer questions about it in the most appropriate way. So if anyone has any advice, I'd love to hear it. But for now, what I'd like to say is that they're really tackling child facial and structural development, common breathing issues and sleep disordered breathing, hyperventilation issues, and they're coming up with a comprehensive roadmap, not simply to understand one disorder in detail, but having kind of a comprehensive understanding of all the considerations in diagnosis, all the considerations in treatment, and everything under that umbrella. I really can't stress enough how comprehensive this institution is to all things breathing. It's just, every single time I've gone to any sort of specialist, it's just been so inward looking rather than outward looking. I feel amazed. There's something else that I'd like to say. I think that the Breathe Institute gets a lot of flack for promotion of treatments such as frenuloplasty, myofunctional therapy, oral expansion devices, but I really want to stress how objective they've been, and Dr. Zaghi has been, while I've asked them questions about all these things. And most of them I didn't have to ask because they preemptively gave these information. They've talked about the high rate of failure of oral expansion devices to be almost entirely dental expansion rather than skeletal expansion, and some of the dangers and the loss of vitality in your teeth. They've talked about how frenuloplasty alone is not enough of an issue. They've talked about myofunctional therapy and what they think, and I want to remind people that these things are still being researched. And I think that there's a conundrum if you have this assumption that because something hasn't been proven enough to work, that it shouldn't be talked about at all. But it can never be proven enough to work unless you continue to do the research and continue to modify your approaches, and maybe you'll find something that works. And I think that Dr. Zaghi and the other care providers at the Breathe Institute are very objective. I don't think that they're over eager to use any of their patients as any lab rats or anything whatsoever. I didn't get that sense, although it's a criticism I've heard a lot.